Howdy gang, Big Ed. So I thought I'd do something interesting today, maybe, for some of you. And that's sort of roughly go over how I approach what I call cinematic lap steel guitar. Some put it in the ambient realm. That's cool. It doesn't offend me. I like a lot of ambient music. It inspired me when I was coming up. I chose the lap steel because I played guitar since I was, 12. And I got interested in free improvisation. There's an awful lot of guitar players, even in free improvisation. I just figured, oh, we don't need another dude, banging away. So I was like, well, what can I do differently? And I'd always wanted to learn lap steel. So I just bought a lap steel off of Amazon and it progressed from there. I actually went from 6-string to 8-string up to 10-string back to 8-string. I like 8-string, just speaks to me more. It gives me more options than 6, but 10 was too many options, especially since the tuning I like to employ is sort of loosely based on a Hindustani kind of vibe. I tune 1, 4, 5, 1, 2, 4, 5, flat, flat, 4. And that's because in Hindustani music, a lot of the times they're playing the lead on the 2 or the 4 or the 1, but I wanted to have more options. And the flat, flat 4 is just really, really cool chordally, voicing wise. And I find I never get bored with that tuning. I tune down a half step, so it's from E flat to G, which is the highest string, which is the flat, flat 4 for you nerds. So what do I do? Well, yeah, I learned how to play lap steel properly first, but it's such a great instrument for encapsulating so much more. It's really brilliant for getting soundscapes and pushing the envelope and these massive kind of swell vibes, if you will, and so much more. And because it's either on a stand or your lap, it's very tactile and visceral, and it feels more part of me than a regular guitar does, actually, even when I have it on a stand. So sort of ironic, but it does. So anyway, that's that. That's the basics. But what I do, move my chair up for you. What I do is I reach for implementation that is not standard for lap steel or many instruments. A lot of it's what Henry Kaiser and I call prepared guitar. Some of it's junk guitar, and I mean that in the sense that I find things. I go to hardware stores and they really think I'm mad because I'll buy one of these, I'll buy a spring, but it's got to be, you don't want to go to a hardware store and see me pick out springs because I'll buy like 20 of them to find the one that sounds right to me. Truth. Also, so I keep a little table of implements. These, I guess they're paint scrapers or something. I don't know. I bought a set of these. They're really cool. Henry Kaiser gave me one of these, which is really great. Does amazing things, but you don't see that every day. I have a bunch of different bows from this Picasso, I think. Whoa, Picasso, I think it's called. It's got a little pick on one end, but it's tiny. And I'll use that, but I'll also use a smallest, I think the smallest bow I could find was a viola bow. I can't remember. But anyway, it's super duper small. So there you go, right? That's the smallest bow I could find. But then I was in a shop in London, in Stoke Newington, and it was a specialty shop for string players. And I was just asking questions, and the gal was like, well, you know, some of the major orchestral players, they only use a bow for like a year or something, and then they donate them. I've got a bunch of them. You know, a cello bow is really great for what you're talking about. And she gave me this really amazing, lovely cello bow. Now, they can't use this for, you know, for the precise nature of classical, and they'll wear out and break down anyway eventually. But this is a fine bow. I really like bows. I'll also, for those of you who want to really laugh, $1 dildos at the dollar store in London. I can't remember what they call the store, but it's like the equivalent of our dollar store. You can get them for $1, and you'll see me on the other camera using this specifically. A milk frother. It's really great for a lot of things. And you're going to see me employ some little cymbals today. Combs. So I found this groovy beard comb with different size bristles. That can be handy, believe it or not. And on and on and on. Multiple e-bows. I like e-bows. I have 3 different kinds. I have this one. I have this crappy, semi-useless TC electronic one, but I actually find a use for it in specific situations. I have a Kent comb that's really great for different bristles. I have clips. I won't be using the clips today, but these alligator clips I use quite a bit on the strings. It changes the pitch and the scale length of strings, and it also gives you sort of a ring modi vibe. I'll use tops. This is there's a really good top. This one is one of the ones that you could spin and will go forever. I'll more likely use this when I play my AUM guitar, Chaos guitar, because Gareth at AUM has spots where you can use implements like this that have their own transducers. So today I won't be using that, but it can be very handy for things. And different bars. I like different bars. I've had a whole bunch of different slide bars made. I have many, but they all have their own tone and weight and value because of that. And all these things figure into how I approach sound. You know, for instance, I have these bamboo trees out back, and they're a pain in the ass because they grow everywhere and take off. And you can't stop them. But I found a dead one that had fallen. It was still semi-green. And I cut a piece of bamboo that fits perfectly over little over the 8th strings, but with a little bit of room. And what's that valuable for? Well, you know, a bamboo tree is a little flat on one side, so that's where you put your finger. The rest is rounded, and it doesn't have the sustain of glass or metal, so you get more of an Asian feel to when you're plucking the strings. So that's really cool too. Anyway, it goes on and on and on. And another favorite of mine, last but not least, is this horrible wand that was supposed to be a better replacement. We all anticipated it a few years ago for the EBO. It's cool, but it doesn't do what everybody wants it to do. What I like to use it for, it's great for making the strings screech. That's all it's good for. It's amazing. Doesn't do what it was supposed to do, but he's making a new one. We'll see, because we're suckers. Anyway, I digress. That's the setup. So as you'll see on this other camera, I have a one of the small cymbals on top of the pickup. There you go, you hear it. Now, often I just run my lap steel, especially live, to 1 amp. Today, because I have a, let me remove that. I have a Roland 13-pin MIDI pickup installed in this particular lap steel, which goes to their interface. That 13-pin goes to a Boss SY1000. I have many, many, many presets I've created for that. So this is one of those situations where I can have my lap steel sound and a stereo, totally different sound on the SY1000. I don't do that all the time. I don't do it on the road, but I do when I'm home. If I have a specific idea in mind where there's a sound on the Boss that is really complementary to what I'm doing, that's where this particular Rukavina lap steel, Ryan Rukavina is a genius, as is Gareth at AUM Guitars, which is my other main lap steel. Again, both of them 8 strings, but you cannot outfit the AUM Chaos guitar with a Roland pickup. The action's too low. So that's what I use this for, and again, only at home. So enough of the jibba jabba. I feel like one of those other YouTube famous guys that I like talking all the time. So let's see what happens here. Let's put it into record. We're in record. Let's see what happens, eh? So there you have it. That was just making shit up on the fly. And I only played one note near the end with the EBow and my steel bar. But I play what I feel. I only play when I'm inspired. If I'm not inspired, I don't play. I learned that lesson a long time ago, and it served me very well with the lap steel and the way that I approach it. It's not for everybody, but it's definitely for me. And I don't need psychotherapy. It's a big advantage playing this stuff. But yeah, it's all feel, it's all emotion, it's all pure. So once I said to you, I'm going to do this, I've blocked you out, apologies, and I'm locked in. And I'm only worried about sound. I should add that when I went, I learned a great deal from the great Eddie Prevost from AMM Music. I attended his workshop every Friday for a year in London. And the first time I went, he came up to me afterwards and he said, Ed, he's like, I know you can play notes. I know you're good, but I'm not interested in notes. We're interested in sound here. And bingo, that big light bulb went in my brain and I got what he was saying. It took a long time to learn specifically his approach and what he was trying to convey. But I think I finally got it, And to this day, he's one of the most important musical figures in my life and a dear, dear friend. And I am so appreciative of him and all my mates over there who do what we do. So that's just a small taste. There are times, yes, I will play more notes. I will play many notes. I will play cascading notes. I will play 2 notes. I will play 200. Who knows? It's all off the cuff, and it depends on the situation, who I'm playing with, how I feel, how I approach it. I mean, I only used a few of my implements there, but I can play if I want to play notes. I can make notes so emotive for me and the audience that I don't need implements, and I do that quite a lot too. And sometimes I do it into sound on sound delay cascades, which are quite lovely. Something like this sounds insane into that, but I didn't want to do that with you today. I just wanted to show you what we got. So that's it. Everybody needs some meat skewers. Maybe I'll show you how I use those in the future. But the sky's the limit. I consider myself sort of a scavenger in the way I approach it, and it's a cinematic lap steel. So I hope you enjoyed that. It's very similar to the piece I did when we lost our little baby rescue wabbit couple of weeks ago, Rufus. I did a piece for Rufus because I was so emotional and so upset that I just sat down and played something, and that's got it out of my system. So I'll put a link to that below. It's a free download at Bandcamp. This will be part of a series I'm doing. Oh yes, I should tell you that. So this series, which is why I did this video today, is I'm recording a new album, and that album will be excursions like this with some minimalism composition added to it. So I may decide that, I want cello, flugelhorn, and saxophone, on it. I will compose that to pieces like this into my DAW, and I will share those with you sometime in the near future. So thanks for sticking through this and watching it. I hope you got something out of it. if you have any questions, please ask. I wasn't using a lot of pedals, by the way. Finally, I should say that I only have 5 pedals on right now. So it's not about the pedals. It's about choice of pedals, combinations, reverb certainly, but I personally like to have at least 3 different reverbs to choose from, and sometimes occasionally combine to get the width, depth, and height I'm looking for, but you can't overdo that either because I add reverb in post-production. So what I'm looking for when I do use pedals is a soundscape. And I have my reverbs at like 30% mix. You know, there's only 30% of the reverb, and it's a like filtery reverb in this case, but you don't want to overdo that because, of course, like I said, I know I'm putting it in post. So 5 pedals, that's it. That's all you need. I will give you some quick rundown. I always run, this might be interesting to you gearheads, I always run a slap delay first before my drive pedal. Why? Because it gives you a doubling sound. Try it with and without, and you'll see it's quite a great difference, especially on lap steel, but on regular guitar too. So I run a slap delay into my drives. My drives, I have 2 different sets of modulation, but they're both multi-effects, so I have a bunch of stuff programmed into that. Sometimes they're delays, sometimes they're modulation, you know, sometimes they're pitch things, and then reverb. And I like to have a filtery reverb choice. I like to have a hall reverb choice. And I like to have something like the New Neighbor wet kind of vibe mixed down, you know, not too wet, no pun intended. And I like to switch between those 3 because, again, I will add in post-production. I have an amazing plate algorithm that I use by Nimbus, which I think is the best reverb. Why is that? Briefly, it's because they're the only ones that get the early reflections correct. Ask any old timer about that. So I have a Nimbus dark percussive plate preset that they have. I like to use that for mixing because I am using ambient sort of reverbs. So I just want a nice little plate to mix in. And then I also use the Eventide T-Verb for room space, just very judiciously bring that in. So other than the reverbs I've got on the board, when I'm using reverb, that's it. And that's it. You don't need much. You know, you need to understand your gain stage. You need to understand your atmospheres, your delays and reverbs. And again, I like having a delay up front to give me that doubling. It really, really opens up, especially the low mids of a guitar. It's great. All right. Thanks a lot. Talk to you next time.